Buried beneath this luxury resort is something that was never meant to be seen, never meant to be photographed, and never meant to be spoken about out loud. The Green Bureau Resort in West Virginia looks like the kind of place where nothing bad has ever happened. White pillars, manicured lawns, expensive carpets. The type of place where people come to forget the world exists. Presidents have vacationed here, celebrities have slipped in quietly for weekends, diplomats have held polite conversations over fine wine, and for more than 30 years while all of that was happening above ground, something else was happening underneath it. Something no one was supposed to know about. Not the guests, not the workers, not even most of the government. Beneath the resort sat a nuclear bunker built to hide the entire United States Congress after the end of the world. And yes, that is a real sentence. Now, before we get into how something like that even happens, we need to talk about why it happens at all. Because you don't just build a secret underground city unless you genuinely believe the world is going to end. In the 1950s, America lived with a completely different kind of stress than we do now. Not the background anxiety of bills and work and social media, but the very real belief that nuclear war could start at any moment. Kids in schools practiced hiding under their desks, during atomic bomb drills. Families built fallout shelters in their backyards. Civil defense ads calmly explained how to survive nuclear fallout as if it were a thunderstorm. And behind closed doors, government officials were quietly worse. They weren't just worried about citizens dying. They were worried about the government dying. Here's the part people don't think about. If all of Congress dies in a nuclear strike, the United States doesn't just suffer a tragedy. It stops functioning as a country. No laws, no legislative authority, no constitutional government. Just chaos with a flag. The president can't replace Congress by decree. The Supreme Court can't legislate. The military can't govern legally. If Congress disappears, the entire system collapses with it. So during the Cold War, the US government began working on something called continuity of government. It wasn't about survival in the personal sense, it was about survival of the system. And survival of the system meant one thing: protect Congress at all costs. Now, here's where this gets weird. You'd think Congress would be hidden inside a mountain bunker deep underground in Washington. But the problem is, those are obvious. If your enemy knows where your leaders are hiding, they just nuke that too. So instead, the government needed a place no one would ever expect. Somewhere lawmakers already traveled without suspicion. Somewhere remote, but accessible. A place already associated with power and privacy. And that's when they chose a resort. Which, even back then, is an insane decision, but also kind of brilliant. The Green Bureau already hosted politicians constantly. Senators and representatives didn't raise eyebrows by visiting. It had rail access, it had private facilities, it was already used for political retreats, and most importantly, no one would ever suspect a nuclear bunker under a luxury hotel. So the government quietly approached the resort's owners in the late 1950s. No public announcement, no press statements, no official records anyone could stumble across, just a conversation behind closed doors. And shortly after, the Green Bureau announced a new expansion, a West Virginia wing. Publicly, it was an exhibition hall, a conference center, more tourism. Privately, it was a disguise, because while contractors built a new wing above ground, an entirely different building was being carved underneath it. Let's talk about what that actually looked like. Imagine walking through a 5-star hotel lobby, while beneath your feet, concrete walls thicker than a truck are being poured, industrial air filtration systems installed, backup power stations buried into the earth, hallways carved through solid stone. Construction workers were told exactly as much as they needed to know, nothing more. Nobody saw the entire blueprint. The structure grew in fragments, which is always how secrets survive. At night, massive equipment arrived. Generators, diesel tanks, steel reinforcements, all under the excuse of expansion. And when the construction finished in 1962, the bunker was almost impossible to identify from above. No antenna towers, no ventilation stacks exposed, no signs of anything unusual, just a grand building with doors no one noticed, and walls that weren't real. Behind panels that looked decorative were 25-ton blast doors. If you didn't know what they were, you'd walk right past them. If you did know, you knew exactly how the world would end. Now, let me stop you right here, because this is where people usually go, okay, so it's just a bunker? No, it was not just a bunker. It was an underground city. Dorm rooms stacked 3 levels high, a hospital, power plants, water purification, food storage, cafeteria built to feed over 1,000 people, decontamination showers, chemical filtration, everything required to run a government with no surface world left. They even built chambers for Congress underground, not symbolic ones, functional ones. They expected legislation to continue beneath the earth. Even stranger, they built a television studio, not because they wanted to record, because they wanted to broadcast. If the world had ended, Congress would still appear on TV and speak to the nation from underground, with a fake Capitol backdrop behind them. Now, let's talk about the most uncomfortable detail, because this bunker was never designed to save everyone. There were evacuation lists, rankings, priority tables. Leadership came first. Essential committees, strategic lawmakers, junior members of Congress, low-ranking representatives, they weren't guaranteed a seat. There simply wasn't room. This wasn't democracy. This was triage. The goal was never saving people, it was saving a system. For decades, people worked inside that bunker in secret. They were officially television technicians and maintenance workers. That's what their paperwork said. In reality, they ran end-of-the-world drills, tested air filters, checked generators, monitored secret communication channels, updated emergency protocol binders, and they never told a soul. For 30 years, not one of them cracked. Not to spouses, not to friends, not to coworkers. They lived double lives entirely to preserve a secret they hoped would never matter. And then came the moment when it almost did. The Cuban Missile Crisis, false missile alerts, early computer malfunctions that showed launches that didn't even exist. Each time, the bunker went into alert mode. Staff believed the doors might actually be sealed. Congress never arrived, but plans were reviewed. Power systems tested, food stock rotated. The place stayed ready every day for decades. Then, in 1992, one journalist shattered the whole thing. A Washington Post reporter named Ted Gupp received a strange tip. Vague, unprovable, but disturbing. So he started digging, and digging, and digging. And eventually he found what the government never expected anyone to notice. A fake company with hidden infrastructure. Suspicious design features, unexplained maintenance routes, and then he tied it all together. The illusion collapsed, and the story went public. Overnight, the government was distraught. Employees were reassigned, equipment removed, rooms sealed, documents vanished. The bunker was officially decommissioned. And just like that, 30 years of absolute secrecy ended in a newspaper article. And today, you can tour the place. You can walk through the dorms, see the cafeteria, stand inside the chambers, touch the blast doors, but you're not allowed everywhere. Some rooms are sealed. Some areas were stripped before the public ever saw them. And there is no public record of everything that was removed. So when you visit the Green Bear now, understand something. The safest place to hide the end of the world was under luxury.